Okay, so Ian, are you still waiting for a dip on Helium with HNT, or are you gonna buy around 29 cents? Good question. So my orders are still on the exchange, waiting to buy, but I mean, so I definitely don't want to FOMO, but looking at the price action, and I've gone through and done a deeper dive on their token model on how Helium operates. So for those who don't know, I definitely recommend go checking out this article from Multicoin Capital. It's called Utility Token, something like that. Token models. Okay, so yeah, so it's called New Models for Utility Tokens. And honestly, I think so. Actually, one of the surprising things about this in a way is kind of a tokenized form of MMT. So in the same manner of how modern monetary theory works, they're kind of going through the same thing. And if we skip all the way down here, they call it burn and mint equilibrium. But if you actually just change the terms around and call it mint and burn, it's basically MMT, but with crypto. So the entire way, for those who don't know how Helium works, the token model, there is no fixed supply, right? So in a way, it is kind of an inflationary token. However, they do burn tokens based on usage. So I believe they issue 5 million tokens a month. We'll have to go back and double check that. But yeah, so basically Helium issues tokens, a fixed amount each month, and then based on the activity on the network, right? They burn based on usage. So whenever somebody wants to use the network, right now they're still building the network. It hasn't really launched the ability to be able to pay for the network with the other token called data credits. But once that's done, the entire premise is people will pay, then they get the tokens and they burn those tokens. So that's where you have the whole burn and mint kind of, I would say, token model. And after looking at their model, honestly, I think this is one of the best models I've seen for a utility token. So I'm very, very intrigued to see how this will operate. With that being said, I mean, I definitely do want to buy more, but I don't want to FOMO. I kind of want to think logically as opposed to rationally, even though in a way, one could say if I'm a long-term investor, why do I care about the price? Well, I'm just, I guess, trying to be picky. But I did buy a second device, and this device I do plan to give to my brother for him to basically mine once he's back in college. And then I have been talking to Diego and some other people. I spoke to somebody who told me he has 500 devices across different regions of the country, across LA, across Atlanta. He's apparently talking with the team trying to have some devices in Asia once that opens up. I mean, that got me thinking. I mean, maybe that's the business model. Maybe that's the way to go, because there's a term for it called Helium patrons. So if I pull it up here, so basically it says become a Helium patron, own your city. Helium patrons get basically benefits. Right now it's only in the US, and it's only available to people who buy, I believe, 15 hotspots. So what people are currently doing, based on going through the different community forums and the Telegram and the Slack, what they're doing is they buy a bunch of devices, they take them to business owners, so people who have storefronts or just any business with Wi-Fi, or just even family or friends, and they say, okay, we'll buy the devices, we'll install them for you, we'll manage everything, and we'll basically share the earnings, right? So I did reach out to one person, a crypto friend of ours who's doing that, the person who claims to have 500 of these hotspots already. I mean, that's pretty impressive if true, because there are only 4,000 hotspots available, right? So this person basically has an eighth of the devices, if this can load. So yeah, the 4,191. So if we do 500 divided by that, he basically has 12% of the hotspots on the market. I mean, if that's true, that's pretty crazy. I mean, honestly, I think this can get even crazier, because this reminds me of mining Bitcoin back in the early days and how people ended up having warehouses and just mining rigs, mining Bitcoin. And I think honestly, Helium can get on that same level, because if we go to their map here, this is basically in 1 year, they have over 4,000 hotspots, and they're about to launch globally. They're launching in the UK, I believe, in a month or two. And then I think once they launch in Asia and everything, honestly, I think this is just getting started, and I'm trying to figure out how I can partake more in this, because sometimes you find a winning investment, and sometimes the best thing to do, as opposed to trying to find other winning investments, is to just double down on your winners. So I'm basically exploring different ways to double down on my winner, and I think Helium is already going to be a winner, just kind of based on, I mean, because you buy the hotspot, you plug it in, within 6 or 12 months, it's basically already paid off, and the rest is just profit. So I think the downside is very, very limited, while the upside has lots of potential. So one of the things I do plan to do, I do have this on my purchase list. So I was going through the forum. It's called a magnetic base for an antenna. Sorry, let me just see if I can pull this up here. So basically, you buy a base for an antenna, something kind of like this, and this lets you attach a very long antenna to your hotspot indoors. So let me see if I can find an example for this with Helium Network. So hopefully Google has something that can showcase this. Just give me 1 second. But I definitely recommend going into the Helium Network Slack channel. They have a channel there just for antennas. So something kind of like this, but obviously with your own antenna that's omnidirectional, just for Helium Network. So that's the next thing I do plan to work on. Yeah, so here I think they're showing some example devices upgrade. So right now people have been installing the antennas outdoors, and I quite frankly don't want to climb the roof to install an antenna. So yeah, here we go, something kind of like this. So this is basically a magnetic base. You attach the antenna, and you just put this indoors. So that's what I plan to do, kind of like this. All right, so this is the next I guess project I'll be working on. Now, I know some people were asking me in terms of the rewards I was earning on the Helium device after I made a antenna switch with my old antenna to a different antenna. It's not an antenna like this yet. The one I switched to is 5 dBi. The old one that came with the box, it is 1.2 dBi. Honestly, there hasn't really been a difference in my rewards. And that's not to say it's based on the antenna, it's just based on going to the map, right? So if you go to, let's pick a random hotspot, right? So it's not purely based on how strong your antenna is. You also have to have other hotspots pretty much in your region, right? Like this person here in Springfield, I mean, there are no other hotspots nearby him, right? So he could really have the best antenna. It's still going to be tough to talk to all these other devices. So one thing this person could do is buy several devices, install them around different regions or different businesses or different family and friends, right? So that's kind of the way I plan to go. Right now, I have a device here at home. I may plan to go get a second device and put it maybe at my parents' other home. Then I'm also giving my brother a device to take back to college. So there are many different ways to kind of go with this, but I definitely do want to delve deeper into this because I think it might make sense to double down or even triple or quadruple down on this and turn this into a full-fledged business, because the downside seems very low while the upside seems very high. Because if this ends up being something like Bitcoin, then there's lots of room for growth. All right, Bill, how does that sound? Does that sound crazy?
Well, actually, yeah, I got a couple things to say about this. So, like when it comes to money, I know it's a utility token, but when it comes to money, one of the things that gives money or a token integrity is the ability to control the money supply, right? In currencies, right? For the
Mhm.
Fed to be able to flood the market with money, or it used to be able to drain it out. So the thing that Multicoin Capital was bringing up is key to integrity of crypto instruments. Now, speaking of Multicoin Capital, if you were wondering why your coin is not dipping, if Multicoin is writing about it, they already own it, and they're the ones who are down there below the market, just going. They're probably buying it every day on some kind of robot program. That's why it doesn't move with Bitcoin. Now,
Mhm.
in crypto, we have these terms like FOMO, right? Like don't chase something up 40%. But what you're talking about is something that comes from equities, and it's called buy breakouts. Okay. And
Mhm.
what you're talking about is you're seeing this network, it's on a chart, but this network is breaking out. Okay. So that's actually something that you may want to just go with, right? Because it's not up 100x, but it could. So sometimes waiting for it to start moving, and then at that moment where you go, hey, because you can tell, like I'm watching you, I'm
Mhm.
going, wow, whatever this is, it's a breakout.
All right. I mean, I love breakouts. There you go. All right. Thank you, Bill.